The Lamborghini Huracan comes in many forms nowadays, and in all its eccentric guises. It's one of the most dramatic supercars money can buy. There are no turbochargers attached to a Huracan, and so despite its technical complexity, it's actually an old-fashioned kind of supercar, with a great big V10 engine mounted behind its two seats, and an exhaust note that will make your ears fizz. And in all its forms, the Huracan is fast with a very big capital F. Here we test it in two distinctly different versions. The red car you see here is the rear-wheel drive 156 grand LP580-2. The green car, of course, is the Spider, which comes with an electric roof and a much higher price tag, just north of £200,000. In a while we'll compare them for performance and noise and show that there are subtle differences between them, but for the time being, what are they like to drive? And is there really any difference between the Spider and the rear drive coupe from behind the wheel?
So I'll do the Spider first because, well, you just would, wouldn't you? A lime green Lamborghini Huracan Spider. That's the one that you take the keys for first. I drove this car on the launch in Miami and didn't really know what to make of it because basically we just drove it around downtown Miami, which is very nice, but it didn't give me the faintest idea what it's like to drive. But having spent some time with it here, it's a pretty lovely thing, the Huracan Spider. It's got 30 horsepower more than the rear-wheel drive car, but it weighs more, partly because it's four-wheel drive, but also because they've had to put some gubbins in it to stiffen it up because they've taken the roof off. It's definitely the softer of the two. I've driven them both now, obviously. We'll talk about the rear-wheel drive car in a bit, but compared, the Spider it's just softer and friendlier feeling. It doesn't feel as manic as the two-wheel drive car, but it feels quite a bit more refined and just more comfortable, much more like a car that you could live with every day. But of course it's the noise in the Spider that you're going to relish most, and the way it looks, and it looks absolutely stunning, this car. I think they've done a really neat job with the hood. It's electric obviously, and you put it up and it feels like a coupe, you bring it down and it just feels $1 million. It kind of sounds $1 million too, and it's very, very quick. I mean, the instant way that this thing picks up, there are no turbochargers here, so the throttle response is absolutely immediate, and it's brilliant and it's brutal. You have to love it, just for the way it sounds and just for the instant way it goes alone. But there are all sorts of other reasons why the Spider is great. The wind buffeting inside the cabin has been done really well. There is not much up to way beyond illegal speeds in the UK. The cabin, you just have to love the cabin in any Huracan, but particularly the Spider, and particularly a lime green Spider. It's just this kind of, it's beautifully laid out for once in a Lamborghini, but it's also just got this flamboyance, and it feels really nicely made as well, the Spider. The gearbox works really well. Works really well in both cars actually, but because it's the same gearbox. But I actually think, Lamborghini won't tell you as much, but I'm pretty sure that the software in the Spider for the gearbox is, again, just a little bit more chilled, a little bit more soft-edged. I'm in Corsa mode, which is the most violent of all because we're on a track, obviously. But you don't quite get the same thump in the back during the upshifts in the Spider as you do in the two-wheel drive car. And on downshifts, it doesn't have quite as much rip, but it's still a very, very good gearbox. Come on, I mean, that noise with these looks and that much performance and this much stopping power as well. The Huracan really stops well, and this much traction. If ever a car could be worth 180-odd thousand pounds, I think this one is it. I think if it was my money, I'd have this instead of, oh gosh, would I have this instead of a 488 Spider? Now there is a quandary. It's a very nice quandary to have though. As to which one I'd have between the two Lamborghinis, It's amazing because on paper there really isn't that much to separate them, but in reality they are quite different cars. The two-wheel drive car is a lot more kind of rabid in its personality and its sound and its ride, its responses. It feels like a proper, slightly unhinged supercar, whereas the Spider has this much more kind of chilled, calm, almost kind of refined feel to it. And that's really clever from Lamborghini because they've built two completely different feeling cars from one basic chassis, one basic concept. And you've got to admire them for that. They feel worlds apart, even though they are from the same family. But one thing is for sure, they're both absolutely epic cars.
That's the Spider then, and what a spectacular machine it is. But what about the cheaper, theoretically more brutal rear-wheel drive coupe? What's that like to drive beside its far more expensive, slightly heavier open-top brother?
So the moment you start to move in the 580, you can definitely tell that it's the more hardcore of the two Huracans. Instantly you notice that the ride of the 580 is just harder, grainier, stiffer, but actually I think I prefer the ride of this compared with the Spider in a car like this, because you can just feel that much more as to what's going on beneath your backside, even if there is, without question, more tyre roar, more movement, less comfort. It just feels a bit more Lamborghini to me, the 580, and that kind of is the way they feel beside one another all the way up in all the areas that you compare them. The 580 feels like the proper, hardcore, slightly unhinged, but very much traditional Lamborghini supercar, and the Spider just feels, you know, that little bit more civilized, that little bit less sharper edged compared with the 580. And when you put the roof on, you'd think that the Spider would sound better, but actually I think that the 580 sounds better because you've got the roof on, because inside, when you're behind the wheel, you can hear that much more of what's going on. Have a listen for yourself. Second gear. I mean, that is enough on its own to make you just think, Lamborghini, brilliant car company. Lamborghini's brilliant cars. It just sounds the nuts, the Huracan, and it doesn't matter whether you're in a Spider or the coupe, but because the coupe has the roof inside, it does sound that much better. And in both cars, you've got a bit less power in the 580, we know that, but you've also got quite a lot less weight. So I think even though the performance figures say they're all but identical, and in the drag race that we'll show you, they are pretty much identical, again the 580 just has this extra little edge to it, and I'm sure it's because it weighs that little bit less, so it doesn't kind of matter that much that it's 30 horsepower down. You kind of suspect that it's just a number on a piece of paper rather than an actual horsepower figure, because the four-wheel drive cars need to be shown to be having more power, but you could just do that all day, every day, and never ever get tired of it. They've both got the same gearbox, 7-speed dual clutch, and it works really well. It does. The gearboxes in Lamborghini's Evolve used to be pretty dreadful, quite frankly, but these new dual clutch ones, they work a treat. They really do. Unfortunately, our Normal playground, otherwise known as the Snake, is sadly not available to us today, so I'm just going around the outer circuit, but in a funny kind of way it suits a comparison of two Lamborghinis, because they are, you know, alright, this one will do 199 miles an hour, the Spider will do 201 miles an hour. They're proper, hairy, high-speed supercars. So maybe we don't want to go around the Snake today. Maybe this outer circuit, which is fairly terrifying in a mid-engined supercar with a V10 engine and the thick end of 600 horsepower, it is slightly kind of edgy because you're very close to the trees and the speeds are huge. But my goodness me, these things feel fantastic around here, and they sound fantastic, and they look fantastic. you kind of don't need an awful lot more from a supercar, really, whether it's got a roof or whether it hasn't got a roof. Anyway, one last go, one last blast. Jeepers. That's pretty outrageous. And I love the fact that there's no turbochargers. That is what makes the Huracan different from just about every other supercar on sale, apart from the R8 of course, but we won't talk about that. I love the Lamborghini Huracan, no matter what form it takes.
So before we handed them back to Lamborghini, we thought we'd compare these two Huracans in a straight line, and for noise. Drag race first then, which one is quickest? Four-wheel drive Spider or the lighter but a little bit less powerful rear drive Coupe? 3, 2, 1. The four-wheel drive Spider gets off the line a touch better, but once they're into their strides they're pretty much inseparable. Both hit 60 miles an hour in 3.4 seconds, and they both reach 3 figures in just a shade under 7 seconds. Eventually the Spider will hit 201 miles an hour, says Lamborghini, while the Coupe, well, that does just 199 miles an hour. In theory, these two Lamborghinis should sound similar, if not identical to one another. Yet in reality, the less powerful Coupe does make a slightly harder edged noise. And it's a bit louder too. This is under full acceleration in second gear, and then it hit 109 decibels, whereas the Spider, as you can see, hit 108 dB. This is in 5th gear under full acceleration again, and the Coupe is just a touch louder. Either way, they both sound and look and just are utterly sensational cars to drive. Let's hope they continue to make cars like this at Lamborghini for a good few years to come. Click on the video windows to watch a track test of the Huracan's big brother, the Aventador SV, or watch a first drive of the LP580-2 in Doha. Click on the play icon to watch our latest video, or on our logo to subscribe to our channel.